Okay, great. Okay, hey everyone. My name is Jamie. This is Brendan and Rob. And we're talking about automatically mapping rigorous discourse. So essentially, I'm going to undo what I just did. And so we're trying to apply AI, machine learning, and LLM tooling to automate an existing proven pipeline used to generate deliberation and argument maps that represent the differing perspectives extracted from text bodies. But actually, it could also include taking podcasts and video, transforming that into machine-readable text, because that's something that we also do. So it's really like 12 forms of media, pretty much anything you can imagine. How's it done today? So oftentimes it's done by individuals and small teams, even though I gave a presentation yesterday about how you can use collective coordination techniques to make it go much faster. It could go way more faster if we can automate many of those components. What's new about the approach is that applying AI, machine learning, and LLMs to generate argument graphs and knowledge graphs and debate graphs is teams are working on it. However, what we have is essentially a proof of concept and a proven methodology that's resulted in a deliberation graph. And so we believe that we will be successful because no matter how many parts of the component that we're able to, no matter how many parts or components of the pipeline that we're able to automate with tools, any amount of additional automation will speed up that process and also improve its comprehensiveness, depth, integrity, these things like that. And then why does anyone care? So these structured deliberation graphs can be used to aid to potentially adjudicate debates on discrete issues, inform decision-making and decision-making models, be used as a knowledge reference for prediction markets, onboard new researchers to a field, using the graph to rapidly understand a field at a high level and direct towards linked references, track the amount of attention paid to different conceptual spaces by using the heuristic of a number of corresponding artifacts which contain arguments and claims, because again, we're extracting them from artifacts that already exist. It's like a citation metric, and then potentially use it to improve the logical reasoning of AI, and then just general educational purposes, generally mapping what is known and discussed. Any risks? Well, knowledge is inherently powerful, so there may be some ways in which surfacing under-researched areas may be beneficial to hypothetical nefarious actors, but it does not seem like a direct risk or an information risk in any way. I'm going to skip down to, before I talk about funding, I just want to talk about what it would take to create the product, because I didn't get to show this yesterday. But if we were to essentially apply machine learning and AI tools in order to automate deliberation and argument graphs, one of the first things we would do is define a conceptual space that we want to be mapped. And essentially what I have here is 841 different topics about AI risk, regulation, challenges, threats, ethics, impact. And so an example under challenges, and these are already a degree of hierarchy of topics and subtopics. So under challenges, we have central difficulties of outer and inner alignment, and we have meso-optimization, no ground truth, no simple alignment core, corrigibility is anti-natural. So essentially we already have this framing of, as we're discussing regulation and threats and pathways and goals, all of these different subtopics. And so to be able to rapidly map all of the different discussions that are happening, whether it's argumentative in nature or we're actually modeling problems and solutions, could be a very helpful tool to be able to navigate the space with. And essentially, we have a $150,000, well, at least my organization, which could be a container for this, has a $150,000 matching grant opportunity. So if we raise $150K, we get $150K, and it would be applied towards automating this tooling. And I don't know, do you guys want to say anything else?
Oh, yeah, sure, I guess I guess this works as well. Yeah, I think this is a really interesting opportunity for exploring the intersection of human and AI collaboration, because AI can certainly do things like propose claims and look at the arguments between claims. And then you also need to ideally you want to track did an AI system contribute this? Did a human contribute this? What parts of the argument map have been contributed by a human or an AI? So maybe AI can help out with automation and sort of unlocking additional ideas to include, and then humans can improve the resiliency of the overall process.
Yeah, I was just, I double down on that. There's 150 matching K grant, the data's already available, and the staff already available. So we could literally, it's tangible and we could start tomorrow.
Yeah, totally. You can see on the list of how what it would take to create the product, much of this is done. We already have a list of concepts. We would map the AI space, done. Generate a data set of machine readable documents which have expressed knowledge semantically related to those concepts, done. Take text documents and start extracting claims, done. So many of these steps are just done. But what's interesting about creating an argument graph, and again, this is very, very different than just preference aggregation or aggregating up a bunch of opinions. It's about actually establishing relevant and like sound and valid logical relationships between things that aggregate up to reasoning why a specific concept is true. And so one of the ways that we see doing that is if we take this whole mass of documentation that we've collected, break them down into sentences, extract claims using training data that we have already generated over years, standardize those claims, and then semantically match those claims in artifacts and documents that have been expressed by humans, we could essentially use chain of thought reasoning to prompt the syllogistic reasoning why those specific claims are true, and then do that same process. Decompose the argument into its individual claims, semantically link those claims to actual like human-generated knowledge in artifacts that we've collected. So it kind of gets over the hallucination problem. We're localizing knowledge in artifacts. That is also a good indicator where we could find more evidence and argumentation to support why a specific concept is true, or like how much knowledge and how much discourse surrounds a specific concept. So like it could, for example, I think I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about your case. Okay, yeah, so in the course of having this conversation, Rob shared what I really want to exist is to be able to essentially have a mapping to see what spaces within AI safety have a lot of attention and what maybe don't. And one good heuristic about attention is, well, how much knowledge has been generated that contains this like claim or semantically similar claims, not only in literature, but also in like less wrong posts and things like that. And like just in the process of creating this, we would create that tool. It's just very easy to generate that data saying, this is how much discussion is localized around these issues, and these are the neglected parts. So if there are funders who are interested in kind of like balancing out the amount of funding in different AI safety and risk mitigation approaches, they could just literally just see that.
Thank you, guys. Questions, comments, useful remarks, pointers? Shadi, you go first.
Yeah, that's pretty cool stuff. So how do you think about complexity of argumentation, specifically succinctness, right? So usually the best arguments are the ones that are the simplest or easiest to grasp, right?
Well, it depends on what your goals are. So if your goals are for human beings to understand them, or if your goals are for them to be like actual valid reasoning, you're kind of optimizing for two different things. In the technology that my team has actually built, we can accommodate for both. So you can, in any node in our particular knowledge graph, the claim itself, the conclusion of an argument or the conclusion of a proof is represented in a node that's surfaced up, but you can unpack the proof. So if you want to see, well, how do I know this is true? Not in the presence of evidence, and not in the presence of other reasoning that supports why that claim is true, but within like the inherent argumentative structure of the claim itself as a conclusion, you can just unpack that proof. And not only can you see all the premises which suggest that that conclusion or the higher level aggregated up claim is true, but then you can branch off and see all the pro and con argumentation to that. So like in our particular knowledge graph that already exists, like we can handle a lot of complexity, but you can also simplify those things. And something that's also really cool about the tool that we've created is that in every single node, you can express the language in different linguistic registers. So we usually standardize for the claim to be very easy to read, but like within that node itself, you can opt into like a higher linguistic register. So essentially like, what is the technical version of this claim, using jargon, being precise, using caveats and being really nuanced, because like that's more accurate of like the meaning of something, although that may not be as accessible to everyone. So depending upon the application of the tool, like, and what your, like who your audience is, the actual inherent language will be very different. And so not only is that in our knowledge graph, but we also have it in a visualization where in an automatically generated briefing document, it just looks like paper. You can just swipe left and right and see a more simple version of the claims or a more technical version of the claims. So, I mean, ultimately what we're creating is a knowledge graph, and that can be visualized in many different ways.
Wonderful. Okay, any other questions?
Yes.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, I'm curious how you think about uncertainty and probability in your knowledge graph. It seems like a lot of claims are not just binary, this argument leads to this. It's like this evidence and this theory can increase the probability of this claim being true.
Okay, so there's a couple of different things here, right? Like, so a confidence level can be like a subjective way in which someone expresses their confidence in a claim. So there's a way in which probabilistic thinking is like localized to the individual, and it's going to be deeply subjective. You can also, of course, if you wanted to like put into the knowledge graph itself a way of weighting evidence and knowledge, and then like kind of generate a metric for that node saying like, given the nature of this evidence in a specific model that we've created to assess that evidence, we would suggest it's like however many percentage likely that this is true. I don't think, personally, from the work that I have seen and the work that we've done, that it is responsible to start creating those metrics. I think you need to be ridiculously comprehensive in terms of really contextually maximizing the information that's relevant to account for when you are not only like mapping whether or not an argument or a claim is likely to be true, but especially like a cluster of them, because there's so much relatedness between units of knowledge. So I think until we like really get to the point of maximizing the context and maximizing the amount of knowledge that we're incorporating that's relevant in that assessment, should we even start saying the likelihood of something being true. And so we do not express that. In our knowledge graph, we do have that capability to add weights and measures and to indicate those in ways that we can program, or ways which could be crowdsourced in terms of people saying, my impression is like this is significant, or this has changed my mind, and blah, blah, blah. We have currently turned those off in the map that's publicly accessible because we feel like it's irresponsible until we really are more rigorous.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much, guys.